7:17.
Yes, sir.
Okay. We'll start with a salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of
America.
to the republic for which it stands,
one nation,
one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, Michelle, roll call, please.
Sure. Mayor Viglione,
There.
Deputy Mayor Zampiano. Okay, I see him. Counselor Angeloni.
Here.
Counselor Diamond.
Here.
Counselor Duty.
Here.
Counselor Downs.
Here.
Counselor Fawnin.
Here.
Counselor Goode.
Here.
Counselor Palicia.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, minutes of previous meeting, February 2nd, 2021, WPCA and Town Council minutes.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Okay, who made the motion?
Mike.
Mike Duty?
Yes.
Okay. Motion was made by Councilor Duty, seconded by Councilor Diamond. Any discussion? We have a vote, Michelle, please.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
All right, thank you. Before we get started here, there's something I'd like to say. Last Wednesday, I went to, my wife and I went to get our vaccine, COVID vaccine. And I want to thank Jesse Capasso and the Recreation Department. Library Department was there. This was all done at Northwood School. Senior Center staff were there. East Shore Health District and Mike Pasquarella. Are you on, Mike? Thank you very much. I don't know if you can hear me. And students from Southern Connecticut State College were doing some of the injections and did a great job. Also, they did that day. They did 62 people. That was Wednesday of last week, and I just want to say what a great program they put together. I don't know how you keep all that together and get the job done correctly. They did a wonderful job. I just want to say that. And my arm hurt for a couple of days. That was about it. And the other thing, the North Branford Fire Department was on scene also, make sure everybody was okay. So I just want to say thank you to them and East Shore Health. They did a great job. Thank you,
Mr. Mayor, it's Ron.
Yeah.
If I could, please, I'd just like to make a motion to amend the executive session agenda to add pending litigation as an item. I don't have the Connecticut General Statute to apply to that amendment, but maybe one of the town attorneys can assist us with that.
Leave to amend for purposes of executive session requires a 2/3 vote.
Right, but what's the
What's
statute
the
number?
number, Tim?
I'm going to pull it up right now. One second. Pulling it up right now. 1 second, please.
It's one
One
dash,
dash 200.
yeah, go ahead, Tim.
I'm in 200 right now. Is it one
No,
dash?
it's 1-210 subsection 4. A4. Actually, B4.
Correct.
I'm sorry. 1-210 B4.
So the motion is to amend the executive session agenda to allow for Connecticut General Statute 1-210 subsection B4 for pending litigation.
To allow a discussion concerning pending litigation that would be exempt from disclosure under 1-210 B4. Yeah.
What he said.
And Ron, Ron, you got to include who you're putting in there.
Oh, I'm sorry, to include the town attorneys, the town manager, and all town council members.
Thank you.
Second.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay. We need a 2/3 vote, guys. Is that what we need?
Yeah.
Okay. Ron, you made the motion. Who seconded it? Rose?
I did. Rose.
Okay. Motion was made by Councilor Policia, seconded by Councilor Angeloni. Any further discussion? Okay. Can I have a roll call vote? Michelle?
Sure. Mayor Viglione,
No.
Deputy Mayor Zampiano,
Yes.
Counselor Angeloni,
Yes.
Counselor Diamond,
Yes.
Counselor Duty,
Yes.
Counselor Downs,
Yes.
Counselor Fawnin,
Yes.
Counselor Gold, Counselor Policia.
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Okay. We'll move into the regular town council meeting. Reports of committees, boards, and commissions. First one is Economic Development Commission. Mike, is that?
There's a draft resolution on page 17, which is for the pollinator protection, which is part of their Sustainable Connecticut application. This is part of that application that they submitted last year, and they're working on to get approved for this spring. So this is the resolution that we need to discuss and vote on tonight if we want this to move forward.
Yeah, actually, I just placed it in there as something for review, not necessarily from that you need to take action on tonight. This is the first time that probably members are hearing about it or seeing it. So it's really just a placeholder in terms of the language that might, have an opportunity to review it. And hopefully there's nothing objectionable in there, but not necessarily for you to take action tonight.
Oh, well, that's not what Roger's email that he sent out indicated. So if we can hold off, that's fine.
Yeah, I think you can. Yeah, my objective was just to get it before you, because it might be something very new that no one's seen before, and it came from another town that might not just, we might want to modify it, but so I didn't want to press the council on something they hadn't seen.
Okay.
Mike, if you don't mind me interrupting, Michelle, that last vote that we had, I was muted when I said yes. Did you read my lips? No, you're muted.
Yes, I read your lips.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Sorry about that.
Okay. Next is Parks and Recreation.
There's no meeting.
Next is Police Commission.
The Police Commission met on February 8th. Most of the meeting was focused on reviewing the proposed 2021-22 budgets for both the Police Department and Communications budget. The Police Commission does have fuel costs, since what was included in the preparation materials for the budget states that the costs for fuel expire before the end of that particular year. So they're looking for some guidance as to how to complete the budget. And they did not, as a commission, approve the police commission budget, the police department budget as a result. So they're looking for the town council for assistance from town hall as to what the fuel costs are going to be for the entire budget season. We have some really good news. Officer Cosenza and our canine Chance graduated from the Connecticut State Police Academy on January 22nd. And Chance received the award for top dog at the graduation. And Officer Cosenza was invited to speak at the graduation. So North Branford should be very proud of both our police officer and our police dog, who came out at the top with flying colors during that graduation. The police commission talked about the fact we're still waiting for Frontier to install the fiber on the Oceankowski Tower. Hopefully that will happen within the next, I think I said this last month too, but they keep saying within the next 3 to 4 weeks. The police commission elected their officers, Victor Piandra as chairman, Dave Palumbo as vice chair, and Fred Auger as clerk. The next meeting will be on March 8th.
Thank you, Marie. Next is Fire Commission.
So they met a couple weeks ago. Everything seemed to go smoothly as far as the commissioners having their electronic accessibility and feeling comfortable with that. So that was good. Happy to report that all the reports that came back financially with the fire department, they're in a very good position this year. They're as of right now, they don't have any new capital projects that they'll be requesting in this year's budget. They're sitting in a good position right now as far as, you know, tires and hoses and trucks and everything else. So as far as the fire department, they're in a good fiscal position for us this year going into budget.
Okay, thank you, Ron. Next is Board of Education, Town Council Communications Subcommittee.
No meeting.
All right, next we have Town Planning Goals Subcommittee.
No meeting.
Next is Planning and Zoning Commission.
They met on February 4th, had a public hearing for a special use request by Tilcon and took some action, and Tilcon needs to use a certain piece of their property to store some fill. The other item was a request for a maintenance, a building to be put up on Mansfield Drive. And that was it. It was a pretty short meeting, and this week's meeting has been canceled because there's no action or no work to be taken or to be done.
All right, thank you, Tom. Next is North Branford Police Department Facility and Town Center Advisory Committee.
The committee met on February 10th. I have a couple of items here to discuss. First of all, there was a discussion with our architect, Silver Petrucelli. And as everyone knows by now, the P&Z has approved the construction plans. They approved them on January 21st. We also received an update on the IT security and telecommunication systems for the new facility. The chief then shared some items, the internal systems that are not in the budget, but need to be addressed. So he is in the process of sharing that list with the committee, and that's something that the committee is going to have to review and discuss at the next meeting as to how we're going to finance some of those other pieces that are not included in the original construction or the money for the PD facility. The committee voted to hire a clerk of the works for instead of having an owner's rep. The committee feels that we're beyond the point of needing an owner's rep because of the project is moving along. And instead of having a general contractor, a contract, they just want to have a general contractor. There's no need for a contract manager at risk at this point, again, because of the process right now and where we are with that project. So again, that has to come up before the town council. Again, the committee would prefer to have a clerk of the works and just a general contractor. In terms of the furniture and FF&E, the committee is going to interview 3 companies that are willing to design the furniture at no cost to the committee or to the town. We'll have to have a special meeting to do that, and then pick one of those 3 companies to design the furniture for the new PD. And the other issue that has to come before the town council is the fact that this committee feels that they should be the building committee for the police facility, that the permanent project building committee will have enough on their plate with the high school project. And this project is so far along, and there are people on this committee that are so knowledgeable and so involved in construction, et cetera, that I think they feel that this committee can be the building committee for the facility. But that's, again, something that'll have to come up before the town council. Thank you.
Thanks, Maureen. Okay, next is Finance Subcommittee.
The Finance Subcommittee met last week. We discussed shared positions with the Board of Ed, which is an HR person in IT. The superintendent was very open to this, as was the Director of Personnel. They asked us to get a list of IT items together that we can present to them. They, depending on that list, would determine whether they could do it with existing staff or they might have to hire out, that it would be a shared position. So I believe Mike and Anthony are in the process of getting that list together of IT items. Anthony did report that they have used Bruce William and Doug Handy, who are 2 of the people on the IT staff for the Board of Ed. They have consulted with them on issues that they've had in the past. So they are using them to some extent. I just think we need to get more of a handle on our IT requirements and get this list to them so that we have a better idea of what we need and how that can get handled. And as far as the HR position goes, they do have someone that helps them out on a per diem basis, and they are willing to, I guess, share that person. I think we need to talk to that person and see once if that is really what we're looking for, what that qualifications of that person is, to see once if that, or if it's someone new. So that area, I think, needs a little bit more work in regards to that. We also met with the representatives from the 4 fire companies in regards to the fire pension, and there's an item on our agenda later to approve a new method of calculating fire pensions that will go into effect for the 21-22 fiscal year. So that's later on in our agenda. And then we just reviewed the financial status, which is in our packet for later. And I think that was it. I don't know, Tom and Joe, if you have anything else.
I think you covered it, Rose.
Okay. So that was it.
Okay, thanks, Rose. Next is the ad hoc design and review committee.
Well, as everyone knows, tomorrow night, the committee is going, along with folks on the town council and Board of Ed, we're going to be listening to presentations of the 3 companies that we have decided to interview in terms of construction manager.
Okay. Thanks, Maureen. All right, next we have town manager's report, update on COVID-19 testing and vaccine.
Before I jump in, if I could just follow up on Marie's comment, the meeting tomorrow night, and then followed by just a reminder that we'll need the council to hold a special meeting on the 23rd to award based on the recommendation coming out of tomorrow's meeting. So that's the timeline we put in the RFP. So I think Gina sent out a poll just what the best time for that meeting would be.
Okay.
So just a reminder.
Okay.
So item 4A, COVID-19 update and testing. There's some information that's supplied in the packet, and I won't go through and bore you with all of that. Obviously, you're, I'm sure, all glued to the TV and news and hearing all about it, and some of you getting your shots as well. So it's a work in progress and coordinating with East Shore District Health Department, and we have the director here with us tonight, so I won't spend a lot of time on what's in the packet already. Report for 4B is on the level of reimbursement that I believe was asked at the last meeting or previous meeting. So the finance director put together analysis there of where we are with respect to COVID reimbursements. So that is also an item in your packet. That is a one-pager. It goes through where we are with that. So unless there are any questions of me, I just assume that we prefer we slip right into the next one, but I certainly can take any questions on A or B.
Mike, I just have a quick question. It's Ron. Do we have any plans to begin opening up town hall again?
Well, yeah, I'd like to. And then really, I think, that takes further conversation with Michael, but I think, in my opinion, again, the trends and the numbers seem to be coming down, although Mike will sort of dive in under the hood, so to speak, to tell you how North Branford is in respect to the rest. But yeah, it's a conversation we're definitely going to be having as we move forward, for sure. I just don't have a timeline for you, Ron, but it's something we're going to have this week. Thursday is typically our day, every Thursday at 8 that we have a command meeting. We talk about those things.
Maybe Mike, when he gives his presentation on this, he can add to this too. But I'm just curious as to why the town hall isn't open when you have teachers working in schools with kids and almost all the other departments are open and operating. I just curious as to what makes town hall different than them, or if they fall under a different guideline, or I'm just curious.
Yeah, just operating, just not open to the public, and that's, again, I think Mike will tell you the numbers that the state may be going one way, and I think this week, hopefully we're trending back the other way, but we were trending the wrong way. But I'll leave that to Michael. He's got the slides.
But haven't we taken all the precautions as far as PPE equipment, putting shields up, putting the 6-foot markers, having masks, doing all of that stuff? I thought we did that months and months ago.
Yeah, that's it. That is in place. Yeah, it's all there. And again, I was just waiting for the numbers to turn the other way. They were rising, and I think we've plateaued, and hopefully we're pulling back. So I think we're close, but again, I defer to Mike's expertise and his guidance.
Well, I agree with Ron, is that we have far less people in town hall than what you do in a school, between students, staff, and everything else. And we've taken as much precautionary measures as the schools have done also. And I just don't understand the back, or what the delay is in opening town hall so that it's not so restrictive to the residents. And not only just town hall, but what's our plan for the libraries and Park and Rec and the senior center? All the other departments, public works, police, fire, public safety, they're all operating as, without any stoppage. They've taken all the necessary precautions and everything else. And I just think we need a more definite plan, and I'll wait until East Shore Health gives their presentation. But I think we need to open sooner rather than later. In regards.
We're hearing a lot of
complaints from citizens about us not being open.
Right. And it's just, and then the lack of getting back to residents, leaving voicemails, and just the turnaround time seems to lag. So,
Gotcha. Okay.
I think if the school is open, the town hall should be open.
I don't think that we do our teachers a service by having everybody who can telework not telework, but there may be a middle ground where you can do what a lot of towns are doing, which is a 50% alternating in and out. But I mean, at the end of the day, the public health guidance is what should drive it. We don't make teachers safer by having everybody who can telework not telework. But I mean, I understand like they've been out because that's where the rates were and the rates drove, and the public health guidance was that people telework when they can, but maybe it makes sense to find a middle ground until the numbers are where they need to be.
Okay. Yeah, we'll look at that, and we'll look at it this week. You know, we're open and operational by appointment, and if we can go back to opening to the public, 8:30 to 4:30, we can take a look at it. But it was just from the last, I mean, the numbers we were seeing were just trending the wrong way. And again, I think there's good news that it's turned the corner, but Mike will have to confirm that.
Is there anybody that's working in the town hall that has COVID now or is being quarantined?
Is there anybody right now?
Yes.
No, I was the last person to be, well, I just recently came back today from being quarantined, but nobody I'm aware of at this point right now. Okay, so I guess we move on to Mike's presentation, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, go ahead. Hello, Michael.
Hello, Mayor, and folks, council. Thank you for having me tonight. And Mayor, thank you for your comments about the vaccination clinic. I will add some information on that I'd like to share. So I have
Excellent job. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, thank you. So I have a presentation. Mike, if you could let me share my screen so I can pull it up.
Yeah, it should be released, Mike.
Okay, so some of the questions that you brought up about schools and the libraries and town hall, I'm going to at least start the conversation. We can take it to the next step. But I want to just talk about the data, the facts, and give you an idea of where we are as a state and where we are as a community, and how we compare it to some of the surrounding communities. So let me start with the state data. So right now, the state positivity rate, and it fluctuates, but it's below 3. It's 2.98 right now. We still have a good number of hospitalizations in Connecticut, but they are trending down. And as far as fatalities, it's always a lagging indicator for COVID-19. And so day to day, they change. As of yesterday, 66 more fatalities in Connecticut. I want to spend a couple minutes on this slide so to give you a good flavor, good understanding of where we are as a community. So the top line are total cases since the pandemic, and you can see that North Branford is at 872. The second line is the positivity rate, and there are 4 numbers, and so those are the last 4 weeks based on a 2-week running average. And so right now, North Branford's at a 5.6, which is nearly the double the state average. So we're still running high on our positivity rate. When we look at cases per 100,000, and that's adjusted for population, we are at 41.4. And so if you look at some of the trend lines, they are going down. However, and there's a big however, is North Branford is not trending down when we look at other communities across the state. So the next number that you see, the 4 in red, is our town ranking through at the state level. So we were at 169 towns. We were 4 weeks ago 68, and then we went to 48, and then we went to 25, and now we did drop to 36. But that means out of 169 towns, we're still at number 36, which is quite high. And so but the other trending data shows that in general, we're moving down, except we're not moving down at the same rate, which means there's still a considerable amount of community spread going on. And the last number is the fatalities. And I put these towns up because these are the towns in the mass dispensing area number 21 that we are working with vaccinations and public health preparedness and COVID. The other thing to consider is while the demographics are different, if you take Madison and look at North Branford, Madison's population's higher, but we have more cases. They're ranked 107 and we're ranked 36. If you move over to Guilford, they're ranked 136. Their positivity rate is a lot lower than us. Their rate per 100,000 is lower than us as a community. And so, there's still some concern that we still have a good amount of community spread. And yes, while it's going down, it is not going down at the same rate. So we got to keep an eye on that. The data I just showed you with the rankings, this is the state data in front of you. You can see on the bottom in red, we're number 36. But then we need to tease out, if we really want to start drilling down into data a bit more, we got to tease out some of these very, very small communities. And so when we tease out the small communities in red, we're actually number 26. And again, to be, depending on how you want to view it statistically, 36, 26 out of 169 towns, we don't want to be at the top of this list. We want to be at the bottom of this list. Hospitalizations, in New Haven County, they've always been trending higher for the last 2 months. While they fluctuate a little bit, they're going down, but New Haven County is still at the top. If we look at our monthly cases, let's give you an idea of where we are for cases per month. So if we go back to May, 25 throughout the summer, there were some low cases. And then after October, we start to shoot up. And in January, we're going down. February, we only have 15 days of data. So we're at 106 cases halfway through the month. And so we'll have to see where the trending data goes for the rest of the month. But again, while it shows a slowing, there's still significant community spread. This is the age distribution. So if we start with the youth, about 17% of all the cases in February are youth. The two that we really are watching because they're going up is the 20 to 29-year-olds and the 50 to 59-year-olds. It makes up nearly 50% of all the cases. And so that's something that we have to keep an eye on. That trending data is consistent across all adjacent communities, and it's also consistent mostly with the state data. These are town fatalities. North Branford, you've been at 17, so you haven't had any recent community fatalities, and the lion's share of these fatalities, they come from a nursing home. Some demographics we're following. If you look at the yellow, 65 and older are about 21.2%. But then when we add 55 to 64, it's about 37%. And so, as we roll out the vaccination, that's a population that we are really focusing on. We're looking at how to get the vaccine to them, especially when we have more vaccine and they do qualify, because we know that population is the most vulnerable. About 75 and older are very vulnerable, 65 and older are very vulnerable also. 55 to 64 are also a target population. So the vaccine rollout, right now, we're in phase 1B. Phase 1A with our first responders and our healthcare workers. So we've gone through 75 and older. Now it's opening up to 65 and older. And sometime in mid to late March, we're looking at frontline essential workers. So this would be our town employees, the public works, school officials, and there's some discussion about opening it up to individuals with underlying medical conditions, and then others to follow. The governor has a vaccination committee, and he takes his advice from the vaccination committee. And so we'll know more in a few weeks, but at least for the foreseeable future, the next 3 to 4 weeks, the focus is going to be 65 and older. Looking at the population and why the state made this decision is 8% of the population is 75 and older, and they represent 71% of all the fatalities. If we look at 65 and older, they are 18% of the Connecticut population. In our communities, that's higher. You just saw the data. It's over 20. And they represent 88% of the fatalities. The senior center going well. The clinics are going very well, except some weather-related issues. We're going to have to see how this this week works out. Next week and the following week. But it's we've had some weather-related issues that have been a bit difficult. Start second doses next week. So anyone who gets their first dose, they get a card to come back 4 weeks later for their second dose, and it is a great partnership. It's not just East Shore, it's East Shore, Jesse and her team, and Mike, and the EMTs, and our volunteers. We can't forget about the volunteers and our school nurses who are helping. We also are trying to expand the vaccinations within this area. I call it a vaccine desert. Because if you look from Madison to East Haven, other than us doing the vaccines, there's really no one else doing the vaccines. And so we have an agreement with hospice. We just, as of yesterday, had an agreement with the Shoreline Family Health Center in Branford to start helping us with some vaccines. We also got word that CVS on Foxy Road will be coming online soon to offer vaccines. When we look at the vaccination rates, to give you an idea of where North Branford stands to the state and other communities, so North Branford right now for first doses across the board, the entire population, we're at 15.38. The population for Connecticut is 10.7, so we're doing better than the state average. If we look at first doses for 75 and older, we're at 70.49%. The state average is 53.3. We're even doing better there. So from a vaccination standpoint, we are above average. We're doing a pretty good job. Actually, a very good job. We have nearly, after this week, I anticipate over 3/4 of the population being vaccinated. Although there's a couple gaps. One is the homebound population. Right now, the state doesn't have a plan that we're aware of. Region 2, New Haven County, we're researching our options, and local health departments are seeing on how they could assist and support this population. It's a special needs population, so we're looking at the current infrastructure in place to see how we can get it. There's also some challenges with how the vaccine, once a dose is opened, about 10 doses in it, sometimes 11, sometimes every once in a while we get an extra dose. It needs to be used within 6 hours. Also, right now, according to the law, once you open it, you can't move it around. And there's some workarounds with pre-filling syringes that is being looked at. But it's a population we're aware of, although at this time, them being homebound, they're at a lower risk. But we do need, as a community and as a state, we have to figure this one out because this population, while there's not a lot, there's a good number, and it's going to take a little extra effort. The senior housing. So we reached out to CVS, Walgreens, and Nutmeg RX to see how they can help us. And while they've agreed to help us, we're waiting for an official response. And at least one of them got back to us, and because there's a shortage, they said, well, if you provide the vaccine, we'll help out. Well, we don't have enough vaccine. In fact, we were cut this week. For all 5 communities, we only got 300 doses for first vaccine. So as you can imagine, there's just not a lot of vaccine right now. And that shortage is going to be with us for at least a few more weeks. We're hoping it changes soon. The state also tells us they're working on how to assist this population. Let's talk about the COVID variants. So we have the B117 variant. It's established in Connecticut, and North Branford was one of the first towns it was identified. Just yesterday, we heard about the B1351 variant. That's the variant that initiated in South Africa, and now it's in Fairfield County. Both variants are more infectious, and at this time, the vaccine appears to be effective for both variants. And according to the CDC, there's no evidence that suggests the variants have any impact on disease severity, although there is some UK data that says that it may. The research is still out there, and we're going to have to wait and see. Sports, got to talk about sports. So to be clear, from a public health standpoint, sports are essential to our community. We're a sporting community. Physical, social, emotional health, and also for some, it's the future. We cannot have safe sports and social events. And there was a great article in the day that talked about that. And it was entitled, Their High School Athletics, Sports or a Social Life, but not both. And a lot of the outbreaks that we investigated involve sports, but many times we really can't find out exactly what's causing it, but in some cases, we know that there's a lot of social gatherings around sports. Just found out today, there is 3 outbreaks going on in sports right now that are being looked into. And it appears that it was related to maybe some of the social events that go on with it. And so sports, really important. We need to allow them, but we have to think about scaling back on the social aspect of it. You know, the carpooling, the pizza parties, the fundraisers. We can't have both. The data proves it. They just started and we're already having outbreaks. And so reopening our state and our town, some reopening and softening of the COVID Connecticut rules are starting. Governor just announced some more to come. We need to be ready to loosen the restrictions while adhering to the precautions, especially with spring coming. So places that you just brought up, you know, town hall, the library, town events, you know, what is that going to look like? Well, there are some unknowns. Bavaria is one. the vaccination and how it rolls out is the second one, but we are moving in the right direction. And we're going to need to live with a higher degree of risk. That's a reality. And, we can't have COVID absolutism. There needs to be a balance between public health and reopening society and our economy. Time Magazine did an excellent article on this, and it was entitled, "Good Morning. We look at the debate over coronavirus absolutism." In the public health emergency, absolutism is a very tempting response. People should cease all behaviors that create additional risk. And while at the very beginning of the COVID-19 outbreak, we were doing that. We basically shut down everything, but we were realizing that we got to find a balance. But in order to find that balance, we as government officials, whether you're talking about the health department, town officials, state, federal, CDC, it goes beyond us. It's about our community trying to find that balance, because we can't have absolutism. It's not going to work. Spring is coming, and we're going to have to loosen the restrictions. That's a reality. Unless, for whatever reason, the numbers trend in the wrong direction and get out of control, we have an opportunity to start opening things up. We need to move in that direction, but we're gonna have to find that balance, and we can't do it ourselves. We're going to need our community to do their part, and so with that, I'll take questions. I didn't bring it up, but schools. I just want to talk about the schools for a second. Throughout the pandemic, we have kept our schools open, and we've done a great job. Between the health department and school officials, Scott and his team, we have track and trace down to a science. And yes, we may have some cases that enter the school, but as soon as we find out about them, they are quickly removed. The school systems in general, especially in Connecticut, they're different. We have firewalls. We have safety measures in place. When we look at people in quarantine, for the most part, we're not seeing community spread or in-school transmission spread. We're just not seeing it. And so what we would be looking for is something called attack rate. So if we put a bunch of people into quarantine and then 50% of them got sick, well, then that means there was an event or some kind of connection. We're not seeing that in our schools. Our schools are very different than town hall. We've had situations in town hall, not just our town hall, pretty much all town halls. So they are different because of the way they're structured and all the work that has gone into it. And while we've done a lot in our town hall to reduce risk, you can't compare schools and town halls. They're just two different animals. That said, I think it would be my recommendation as your public health director is let's see how the data trends in the next week or so. And if we continue in that downward trend, then maybe we should think about reducing some of the restrictions. But right now, given the data that I just showed you, I think it's in our best interest to put on the brakes a bit more and continue the course. And so with that, when we open up to questions, Mike and others, if you have anything for me.
Mike, it's Walter Goad. Can you tell me the differences between the town hall and the high school as far as like what are the differences?
So in the school system, everyone wears face coverings. They're very strict about face coverings. There is social distancing that's taking place. They have track and trace. They don't have small lunchrooms where people are getting together and eating. There's not that crisscrossing. In a town hall setting, while while they're doing a good job, it's different in the sense that school settings statistically are safer.
So, I mean, the kids in school aren't getting within 6 feet of each other, like the same way it would be as the town hall?
Yes, they are.
So they are getting within 6 feet of each other. We know that, but we also have to look at the population. For whatever reason, students, youth, they're when they do become ill, a lot of them are asymptomatic, and when they do get sick, it's very, very mild symptoms. Adults are different than students. It doesn't behave the same way with this virus.
And I assume, obviously, in a town hall, people from the public, you don't know who is coming in and out, whereas in a school, you're cohorting and tracking.
Yeah, well, there's cohorts, there's track and trace, there's all these other things. And so when someone comes in we deal within our office, right? And we don't let people into our office right now. We have a system of dropping off because there are people who come in and some of them, have face coverings under their nose. They don't have proper face coverings. We had an individual, coughing on the other side of the door. You don't have the same control in a school setting. It is very structured, very, very structured. And we have data to support it's working well. In other settings, it doesn't work as well. And the data proves it.
This is Tom Zampano. That may be where they don't have the proper structure in place, but that's a management issue. I've been working in my facility since day one, and we have a pretty strict protocol. We have a manufacturing plant and a retail store, and everybody that comes in has to abide by our protocol. And I don't see why the town hall would be any different.
It's a different population. You're dealing with.
No. What you don't understand, it's not a different population. In our facility, we've got people coming in from 19 years old to 80 years old. That's a pretty broad population. And I would assume that would be a similar population coming into the town hall. But if you have the right structure in place and you properly drive that structure, it clearly can be done.
The town hall is almost like a supermarket, Home Depot. Somebody's coming in to pay a bill. They walk up to the window, which is protected. They pay their taxes by either credit card or whatever, and then they're out of there. It's not where they're spending a long time. That person is just a clerk, same as at Big Y, same as at the hardware store, same as at any other place. I can't see any difference in that atmosphere. And they're probably even more protected.
We even have guidelines on the lunchroom, on out in the manufacturing plant. You can go without a mask if you can keep your distance. But in the retail store, and any employee has to have the mask on their person, because you have to be able to put it on. If you're walking in a hallway, you have to put it on, because if someone's coming the other way, you can't keep social distance. In the break room, we have it set up where only one person goes in the break room. That's the way it is. And that is a management issue, clearly.
So what I will say is, at this moment in time, we are working with a number of food service establishments where people have tested positive. Some have closed. We have an active investigation going on right now at a supermarket. And so there are a number of outbreak situations that are happening at any given time. And that's just the nature of it. With town hall, one, we've seen a number of outbreaks, but two, we got to think of the unintended consequences. These are the folks who run our government. And if we're talking police or fire, if we're not protecting this population at a higher level, and as we've seen, it could be impacted. And so we want to keep it as safe as possible, because this is the central part of the operations of government. And if we, as we've seen, a number of employees, and again, not in North Branford, we've seen it in other town halls across the state, the numbers are trending down. And while we have good protocols in place, we really need to protect these individuals, because if we start losing departments, then services are really interrupted. And we're seeing that with police and fire and the different sections. So, while I hear you loud and clear, and I understand, but I just showed you the numbers. We should play it safe a bit.
So in the numbers that you gave us, can you take out of those numbers the cases from the school district that they've had, whether it's students, staff, whatever? Because I think that is definitely impacting our numbers, because they have cases that are being reported all the time and putting people into quarantine so that's in our numbers. So our numbers, yes, are skewed higher. When you quarantine a whole sports team, and it's happened several times, or classrooms or anything else like that, that there was someone in there that had it, and now they have to quarantine. So that's coming from a school setting, which is part of our numbers. And yet the schools are not closed down.
So the numbers that we showed are folks who are positive, and they actually had COVID-19, not the quarantine individuals. Those numbers were not reported. If we look at the population, about 17% of all the cases this month are school related. So that's a low number. If you look, the other numbers, nearly 50% are the 50 to 59-year-olds and the 20 to 29-year-olds.
Right, because it's probably the parents of the school kids that have to now stay home, and because the child had COVID-19 and the parent got it, or vice versa. So they're skewing the numbers. That's my point. Is there any way you can take that out of our numbers, take the school-related cases out of the numbers? Or they're all lumped together, so you really can't do that?
I mean, they're all lumped together, but even if we removed them, I'm just trying to understand, if we were to move the 17% of the cases.
Why would we remove positive numbers of people in our town? I mean, it's a positivity rate of our town.
Well, because he's trying to make the case why town hall should remain closed. And I want to know where would our numbers be if we didn't have the school related cases, because the schools are not closed.
Yeah, again, the schools are different. They're different. And when we started this out, to think that we were going to keep our schools open in the middle of a pandemic was an experiment. We never, ever thought we could do that. But what we've realized is because it's such a controlled environment, and we have firewalls everywhere. We have these stopgaps, firewall safety precautions, very, very structured. And we're dealing with a population that when they do get sick, they're either asymptomatic or they're not getting very, very ill. It's a different population. It's a different animal than the general population.
But our police and fire department have not shut down during any of this at all. And we've taken extra precautions to clean the apparatus, clean the vehicles. They've taken extra steps. So when you were talking about police and fire, our police and fire haven't been, negatively affected that they've had to shut down on there.
Same with our public works. Our public works hasn't stopped working.
I still don't see the connection between why town hall cannot reopen and how we cannot implement the same type of firewalls in town hall as you claim they have in the schools. Because really, your point is more that it's because of the age of the population and the severity of COVID-19. That's more the direction you're going in, and not them not getting it at all.
All right. So as a matter of clarity, I'm not saying you can't open town hall. All right. It's just a recommendation, and it's in line with what other town halls are doing. So we're not on an island. It's what other town halls are doing. Police and fire have been impacted with COVID-19, and there are individuals in quarantine. So they have been impacted. But what we have to weigh out is if you want to loosen the restrictions, we can do that. But we just got to be mindful of the unintended consequences, because it's still pretty high in the community. Town hall employees do not have their vaccines. At least most of them don't.
Either do the schools.
Again,
teachers don't.
It's different.
Yeah, but hold on one second. I don't know that it's clear to say that loosen the restrictions. We can open up things and have strict guidelines. That's a management issue. Strict guidelines, and they have to be adhered to. Mm-hmm. If they're not adhered to, you cannot enter the property, or you must leave the property, or whatever it may be. I mean, there's, yes, it's a little bit work for management to put these policies in place, but they absolutely can be done. They're being done everywhere, but they have to be followed. And it's up to the whatever the facility is to manage it, to make sure it's being followed.
Okay. All right. So what I could say is I could work with Mike Paulus and his team about seeing how we could be a little more open for business and have some traffic, but just understand that with the increase in traffic, there's an increase in risk. And so, we have to be prepared that if we do that, and we do have an outbreak again in town hall, then departments and services will be impacted. We just got to be prepared for that.
I mean, what happens at Big Y? I mean, I don't mean to, just everybody goes to the store and everybody keeps their distance and follows those rules.
Yeah, and we have a number of outbreaks that are happening in food service establishments. And we are actively investigating one right now in another community for a grocery store where we have a number of individuals who are sick. But they're being impacted, but they're not critical to the operation of a town. And I think that's different, because they could bring in part-timers. They have a large staff. Your staff is very small, and a couple people in the department can shut down the assessor's office, the town clerk's office. And it's, again, we can do it, but there comes a degree of risk. And that's really what my point was talking about at the end of the presentation, is that, we can do it, but we have to accept the level of risk that comes with it. And is now a good time, given the numbers, or do you wait a bit? And, that's a decision for the town to make, and we can be part of that decision and try to find that sweet spot. It's not a hard stop, absolute, it can't happen. You are the leadership for the town, you can make the decision. But I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't give you full disclosure on the possible impacts of that decision.
Mike, we've been waiting 11 months now. One more month is a year, so don't forget that.
I hear you. Yep. Yeah.
It's a long time to run a town hall like that.
So how did Madison and Guilford get put into, the East Shore Health District area as far as like who did that? The state? Did they devise?
So if we go back, wow, nearly 20 years, what the state of Connecticut did is they put together what they call mass dispensing areas, where if we were to have a pandemic like we're experiencing, there would be these small catchment areas of towns that would work together on their public health preparedness plan, their pandemic plans to give vaccines. So there's some level of organization to the response. And so we are mass dispensing area number 21. And we have two, what they call pods, points of distribution, one at the Branford town campus and one at the Madison town campus. And so it was geographically putting a response together in the event of a pandemic. And so that's the model we're using. We did vary from the model a little bit with the senior center vaccination clinics and operating all of them in each town, at least during this time, because that population is a special population, is a VAM system. That's the federal system for getting the vaccine. It's not easy to use. And so we needed some assistance with senior centers to help individuals register. Also, the senior centers are a common ground, a place that seniors feel safe. They're equipped with handicap accessibility, transportation, things like that. So this has been and if you look across the state, there's many, again, MDA, mass dispensing areas working together. So it's been in existence now for 20 years. And when we get the vaccine allotment is for the 5 towns.
My point is, like, Branford, East Haven, and North Branford pay a fee to East Shore Health District. And now we have Madison and Guilford that are part of this based on a state thing from 20 years ago, that they're part of our town. So the way I look at it is North Branford doesn't have any other facility besides the senior center to give vaccines, because we don't have a CVS, we don't have a Walgreens, we don't have a Walmart, other dispensing places. So we came up with our own. We did the senior center. But the other towns who aren't paying a fee to East Shore Health District are taking vaccines from North Branford. And they also have other facilities that can give vaccines. So how does East Shore Health get paid? Does the state give you money because Madison and Guilford are now in there and they're taking away from the other towns that do pay a fee?
No, that's an excellent question. So we did get, early on, we got some funding from the state, but Madison and Guilford are also giving us their public health preparedness money to offset the costs. So the short answer is yes, they are paying.
And how do the number of doses per town, how does that get divvied up? Because if other towns have places that will dispense, that you can, CVS's, Walgreens, Walmarts, that you can get shots, they should get less from the pool that you get than a town that doesn't have those options. But I'm sure there's some kind of formula.
Yeah, so what we agreed on is every town, whatever allotment we get, we would divide it up. Now, that's
the 5 towns, you just take it and divide it by 5?
Yeah, we're trying to be as fair as we can. Now, that said, we've also expanded our capacity. So hospice has been running clinics. And so some of the folks from North Branford are going to hospice. This Saturday, North Branford got 50 slots at the Shoreline Family Healthcare Center in Branford, along with Branford and East Haven. And so what we've been doing is we're trying to expand our capacity with vaccinations with those two. And now CVS, while it's not in North Branford, it's nearby, and they're going to be coming online. And it's working. You can see the vaccination rates are over 70% whereas the state average is only 53%. So what we have in place is working very well, and that number after this week is only going to go up. So from a vaccination standpoint, we're actually doing we're doing a very good job, much better than most of the state.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Mike, is the holdup with the vaccines the actual production of the vaccines? We're just waiting to receive the vaccine?
So each individual state gets an allotment. Right now, there are vaccines in surplus right now, but for every vaccine that's given, a dose is held back for the second dose. So this coming week, we're doing second doses. We've already done second doses for first responders, but we're not able to use that vaccine for second doses. So this week we got 300, which is a lot less than we asked for, but everybody around us is getting cut. Even some of the hospitals that have asked for thousands and thousands of vaccines. One hospital in particular only got 1,000 vaccines. There's very soon it's going to change. Johnson & Johnson vaccine is coming online, hopefully within the next few weeks or so. So we'll have a third vaccine, and the federal government just purchased a bunch of vaccines. So I think there is a distribution problem going on. That's part of it. And our population is relatively small compared to other populations. And so that's why, we're only getting around 60,000 vaccines a week in Connecticut, half of which have to be put aside for second doses. So every dose that comes in, they put aside a second, they put that aside. So I anticipate it's going to change, and it's going to change soon. And our governor is really trying. I've been on, calls with the State Department of Public Health, and I know they're fighting for us, but it's right now it's just the way it is.
So they can't produce it fast enough. The actual Pfizer and them can't produce it fast enough?
Correct. They can't produce it fast enough. And we have to also remember, it's not just the United States. This is a global fight for this vaccine. So you have countries all over the world fighting for the same vaccine, and a lot of it is produced here in the United States.
But the production is going to be, does it seem like it's going to definitely pick up? Like you're saying, you're making it sound like.
Oh, absolutely. The way things, at some point, what we believe may happen is right now we have a supply, but at some point when the vaccine becomes widespread, we may have a delivery issue where if we have it, we have to, now we have to deliver it and put it, and give people their shot. The problem with the COVID vaccine is one, right now there's 2 doses, right? So that's part one. We have this database that slows us down a bit, right? So it's a new federal database, and we're having some issues with it, although it's getting better. And then, unlike a flu vaccination clinic, people have to wait anywhere between 15 minutes to 30 minutes afterwards. So, and we have the social distancing component, right? Where we didn't have to do that with flu vaccines and some other vaccines. People would go in, but there's only so many people that can go through a clinic per hour. And so that, that's one of the things my staff and I are working on, and looking at larger sites, going back to our pandemic plan, where we use the Branford High School and the Madison Town campus. We've had conversations with Scott. So when teachers come online, we're talking about doing some vaccinations at the North Branford High School.
So as soon as we get the shots, we'll be able to distribute it faster.
Yes.
Right?
Yep. But right now, we just got to kind of hang tight, and we get what we get, and we do our best. For the next 3 to 4 weeks, it's only going to be 65 and older.
Any other questions? Michael? All right, Mike Paul, so do you want to finish this with the, thank you, Michael.
Thank you, folks. Any questions, please let me know.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, Mike, do you want to report on the reimbursement of COVID, or did we go through that already?
Yeah, we did that. I mean, it's in the report, so.
Okay. Okay, very good. All right, next, let's move on to community events and presentations. No, we
Yeah,
did that.
we did Mike, and now we're 6A.
All right, okay. Number 6, citizen statements and petitions and correspondence.
Just one letter in there regarding the tower for informational purposes. The council obviously had made a decision. I'm just looking for guidance in terms of the response before I respond, unless this wants to be referred to the tower committee communications. That's fine.
But didn't we take a vote on this?
What's that?
Didn't
We did it down.
Didn't we take a vote on this? So
Yeah.
can't you just send them our motion, our vote?
Yeah, we made a motion and we voted on it.
Yeah, okay, no problem. I can do that.
Okay, that's all set. Next is resignation and appointments. We have the appointment of Ronald Norfield to fill a vacancy in the pension committee.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, who's that again? I'm sorry, I was looking down.
Mike seconded it. Marie made the motion.
And Mike, you,
Mike seconded.
okay. Okay, motion made by Councilor Diamond, seconded by Councilor Duty. Any further discussion? Can we have a vote, Michelle?
Sure, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Okay, thank you.
Okay, next is unfinished business. Discussion and action. First, we have review and approval of RFP number 7, 2020-2021 owners representative services for new police department, no backup.
Yeah, that's just an item hadn't taken any action and probably should come off because as Councilor Diamond reported out, the committee is looking for a clerk of the works and not an owner's representative for the PD. So I think if you can either take action or no action or dispense and take that off the agenda, it's my recommendation.
Well, if there's any action necessary, Marie, what do you think?
No, we just remove it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right, let's move on. Discussion and action. Purchasing secretary is number 1, and assistant building official.
Yeah, on that one too, based on finance, I think those will be deferred, no action at this point. I think the consensus was to look at it down the road.
Okay. All right, next, Rusty, you're up. Rusty, Malik, update on North Medford High School building project. The first says I'm going to put these together. Is Rusty, you there? Oh, there you, okay.
Yeah, he's just muted.
Okay, we have review and approval of amended to contract agreement and review and approval of invoices and additional consultants.
Okay, well, good evening. Let me just give you a brief update. On the 9th of February, we completed our schematic design package. There was a link to a site because it's a real large package of documents. So we did provide a link. So if anybody's interested, anyone's got any questions, certainly email us or contact us. But that's done. We're in design development, which is the next phase. So schematic design is about 20% of the design phase. Design developed is another 20%, and we're into that phase. In this phase, we will really be getting into more detail about the building, developing sections. We'll have finished schedules, a lot more information about the building. The first phase is more about how the spaces are organized, where they are, the adjacencies, and so on. Now we're getting into the details. So we will have another series of meetings with all the teachers In fact, on Thursday, we will meet with the building official and fire marshal to go over our code requirements and code plans, make sure that they're in agreement with us. If they've got any concerns or questions, and we'll respond to those. Just a good way of keeping the project on track so there's no surprises later on. We will update these documents and have that link to these documents available to those officials so that they can access them at any time. It doesn't have to be when we're having a meeting. It can be really anytime, but at their convenience. We got confirmation today that our next meeting at the state is April 15th at 9 a.m. That's what we refer to as a design development review, DDR meeting. So that's been scheduled, and we will be, all the documents. So at that meeting, we will be sharing a design development package with them, and that package is another one of our milestones that we will also share with the council and committees as we move forward. In fact, there's some approvals required for those as well. I had included in the package a brief update. One of the things that I wanted to go over was, as you recall, we talked about the 4 consultants that we were going to get proposals from to expedite the process. So what I had we'll start with the environmental phase 2 consultant. We got two out of the 3 consultants that I contacted did give us numbers. Martin Brogy, who is the firm that did the phase 1 on the project, their number was the lowest number. Actually, what was interesting is most of these were very close in terms of the results themselves. To me, it was more important that we have continuity of somebody that knows the site that did the phase 1, and their fee was slightly lower than Conoco's fee, which in many ways, even if they'd been a few dollars higher, I would have still recommended we move with them because, again, they're familiar with the site. They did phase 1, and we will be able to work with them. And another critical component of the decision making in terms of who we select was timing. Who's available? Who can be on the project right away and give us do the investigation, do the work, and give us our reports in a timely fashion. So that was a criteria. So, I'm recommending Martin Brogy for the phase 2 environmental assessment on the project. I'll just go through all of them, and then you can, I don't know if there needs to be a formal motion or how this would be handled. The second was the survey. Now, the survey was an interesting situation because the survey was already on site working on some of the work that they were doing that's in our scope. And so, when we approached some of the other surveyors, they said, well, these guys are already on site, and we needed this work done immediately. I couldn't afford to wait. And so we knew what the weather condition was going to be. So we said, okay, I tried to get a proposal from actually 2 other firms, and they said, look, you've got a surveyor on site. The cost of the survey, the additional work was $12,000, and I just didn't want to wait till and to get other proposals. Just the fact that if somebody else came on board, they'd have to, they would have to mobilize on site. And actually, these guys said if we have to remobilize, our number is going to be higher, if they were the lower bidders. So we gave them the green light to go ahead with the rest of the survey at $12,000. The third was geotechnical services. We had 3 consultants look at it. Wealthy did the initial borings on the site. They also did the test bit. I thought they would be the more likely candidate. The problem was that they can't get on site for more than 3 weeks. And when you look at the numbers, they're actually, Whitestone provided us some additional information. They said, look, we can reduce the 15, some of the boring depths from 25 feet to 15 feet. Our engineer looked at that, said yes, there would be some savings there. So not only were they able to get to the site, in fact, I've told them to stand by that they're going to be starting tomorrow morning, pending everything being approved. And their number is lower than Wealthy's at the end of the day. So both of those work to our advantage. The final one was hazmat. And this is a little bit more complicated. When we put the proposal out and went through the scope of services, there's a line item that talks about total base fee. So we had the three that I've identified, Tigan Bond, Fuss and Meal, and HRP. You can see that the base fee when we went through it, one was at 29,000, one's at 25,000 change, and one's at 63. I had a scope review with the two lower quotes. We went over this. I wanted to make sure that they're covering everything. We identified additional testing. And what's going to happen here is that with hazmat, you do the first series of tests. So depending on the results of those tests, you may need to do more or you may not. So we won't know that till we've actually taken the samples and they've gone to the labs and they've come back either negative or positive. So I didn't want to say, I'm not going through this process another time. I want to do it once. I want to make sure we're covering ourselves so that if something comes back positive, we're already prepared for it. We've got a budget for it and we'll move forward. If it comes back negative, then there's no cost to the town. So what I have here between the two, in Tigan Bond and Fuss and Meal, it was very close. And you can see there's a $15 difference in their pricing at the end of the day. Should also mention that all three of these consultants were on the state bid list. So there's no issue with going to them. With the state bid list, you can basically pick one and just award it to them. I always like to get multiple quotes because even when you have them on the state bid list, they're more competitive when they give you a quote. So at the end of the day, as I looked at it, Fuss and Meal is very familiar with the site. They're doing the testing on site for the Board of Ed, for the schools. So they've developed a HERA report. They're knowledgeable about where the asbestos is and where it's not because they've done prior testing and removal. So in this scenario, they're $15 more, but I feel more comfortable with them being the consultants for the hazmat, and their availability also was more immediate. And their local company is both. The other one is too, but the corporate offices are further away. But ultimately, it just really came down to the fact that they knew the building, and the fee really didn't factor into what we're doing. So those are the four consultants that we talked about bringing on board.
Okay.
So other than that, the selection of these consultants, I know that it required the approval of the council. And then the only other consultant that we need to be looking at is the third-party reviewer. That's not needed immediately. It's needed for when we do our construction documents and go to the state, because for that, we will be working with, we need a building permit at that point. We'll discuss that if there's a preference on the part of the local officials and who they worked with in the past, so we can certainly, we have time to develop that RFP. The only other thing I have to report is that we have also modeled the intermediate school building. My team will go out there next week to look at the roof conditions, the roof edge conditions, because I know that is something that if, depending on where we are and what the cost is, that the town is looking to potentially go out to bid and implement this summer. So that is the extent of my report, and I guess I just need an approval for these four consultants.
Rusty, did we get a commissioning agent yet?
I understand that's not through me, that's independent, and I believe that RFP response is due on the 2nd of March.
So we did put that out to bid, Mike.
Yeah, that's right. And I think that is correct date. I don't have it in front of me.
Okay, because that was, you didn't mention anything about that. You said the only thing left was the third party review. And
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. I
didn't remember that we appointed. I know we had discussed it, but I wasn't sure on that.
Hey, Rusty, it's Tom Zampano.
Hi, Tom.
Hi. I was wondering, should we be concerned under the geotechnical services? I believe you mentioned that Welty was going to be somewhat over 20 foot deep on their test wells, and Whitestone said they can do them at 12 or 15. I know something like that. I believe you said. Should we be concerned about that? Is deeper better, or?
No, so I had my engineer review both those, and actually we asked Wealthy for a similar savings because both of them said there are some locations that we may not need to go 25 feet, especially in the parking lot areas. So we determined that, we will look at the profiles as we go along, and where the building is, we'll probably continue with the 25 feet. There may be some instances where we don't need to go 25 feet. They'll determine that while they're doing the work. The engineer will be there, and they have to ultimately put a report together. So everything will be monitored by the geotech and our engineer, so that if there's any doubt about where they need to be, I've told them, we're basing everything on 25 feet. If we go 15 feet in certain areas, they'll credit us that amount. So when it comes to our billings to the town for this work, you'll only be billed, for instance, if we are, the number for geotech is at 32, but if we only end up doing, there was a projected savings of 8,000, and let's say we are able to realize all of that and don't have to do those particular borings that were identified, then the billing to the town will only be 21,000. But right now we're asking for the full value as the contract value, so that we don't come back later on and say, oh, we need to do another one, or that's at 25 feet or something.
Okay, thank you.
So I'd like to make just to make this official. So I'd like to make a motion to award the environmental phase 2 to M. Brogy Incorporated at a fee of $16,461.50, to award the survey to Benesch, BENESCH, at a fee not to exceed $13,200. Geotechnical services awarded to Whitestone at a cost of $32,010, and hazmat awarded to Fuss and O'Neill at a fee of $54,340.
Second.
Okay.
If I may, I can also just elaborate a little bit. From a budget perspective, we had 65,000 for the hazmat. So if we were to expend all that, and I don't expect to expend all the 54,000 on the hazmat, we would still be under budget. We had the environmental phase 2. We had about 15,600. So that would, depending on the number, we're $862 over, but they're really part also of another line item on the budget for owners consultants that still has $80,000 left in it. So there's plenty of money. The borings, we had budgeted 25. If we, at the current number, we would be over by 7,000. But if we realize the savings from the reduced depth borings, then we would be under budget. And finally, asbestos, we're about $10,000 under budget. So overall, on these consultants, the cost is under budget overall.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, have a motion made by Councilor Angeloni, seconded by Deputy Mayor Zampano. Any further discussion on this? All right, Michelle, can I have a vote, please?
Mr. Mayor, would you like a roll call vote or would you like all in favor?
No, I think we can do all in favor.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
Okay, there was one other item here, Mayor, item 8CI, the review and approval of amendment to the contract agreement, which we didn't take care of.
Yeah, actually, you have I, and then you also have the approval for the invoice as well that Rusty has submitted. So you need two more action items there.
Okay, just
Right.
let me just speak. I thought that amendment was approved last time, subject to, I have to check the minutes, but that was subject to the town attorney's language, and we had come up with that. That's what
this is just the revised.
This is the revised version. You can approve it again, but just as.
No, you're right. We did approve it with a subject to attorneys. So that's fine.
So I can confirm
as
that
I'm
the
concerned.
amendment that was part of this
Unless
package here is what was approved by our office after further discussions with Rusty's firm.
Okay.
All right, that's fine.
Okay, so we're all set with that?
Yep, and just the invoice now.
Okay.
All right,
So I move to.
Go ahead, Rose.
We need to approve because right now we're the building
You're it.
committee still.
Yeah,
Until this project gets moved to the building committee, we
Well,
have to approve invoices.
Right.
So
Correct.
that's why this is in here right now. So I'd
Okay.
like to make a motion to approve invoice number 13191 dated January 31st, 2021 to QA&M in the amount of $382,695.32.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion was made by Councilor Angeloni, seconded by Councilor Gold. Any further discussion on this? I have a vote, Michelle, please.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
Okay, thank you. Next is new business, discussion and action. Yeah, okay. First is confirmation of planning and zoning administrator, town planner / town planner.
Yes, so there is a prepared motion for the council.
Okay, so I'd like to make the motion in accordance with section C6-3 of the Charter of the Town of North Branford. The town council hereby confirms the town manager's appointment of William Agresta of Woodbury, Connecticut to serve as the planning and zoning administrator / town planner with a starting salary of $74,000 upon
Contingent on favorable
contingent upon
recommendation.
background.
Yeah.
What was that?
Background investigation.
Contingent upon favorable background investigation.
Second.
And positive recommendations.
Yes.
Oh, the reference checks.
Okay, was that you, Marie, second?
Yes.
Okay, motion was made by Councilor Angeloni, seconded by Councilor Diamond. Any more discussion, any further discussion? Can I have a vote, Michelle?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. You also have Will Agresta on the meeting. So congratulations, Will.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Will.
I assume you don't need me anymore tonight?
No, I think we're
If
all
you're
set.
interested.
You're not ready to start?
Enjoy your meeting.
Thank you, Will.
Thank you. All right, next is town attorney to address the town charter on possible amendments.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. This is Tim Herbst. I believe you were provided with a memorandum prepared by our office detailing the timeline of events relative to the process. I think in the interests of getting the conversation going, I think I would like to briefly walk you through the process of how a charter revision would be undertaken, and then take any questions that you might have after I walk you through that process. But there's essentially a timeline of events that need to happen under 7-188A of the Connecticut General Statutes. And the appointing authority triggers the process to commence. And that appointing authority is the North Branford Town Council. So to initiate a charter revision process, one of two things needs to happen. You either need a 2/3 affirmative vote of the appointing authority to vote to impanel a charter revision commission. So it'd be 2/3 of the North Branford Town Council voting in the affirmative, or 10% of your electors and voters sign a petition requesting that a charter revision commission process commence. 30 days after the initiation of the process, the appointing authority, being in the North Branford Town Council, would appoint a charter revision commission consisting of between 5 and 15 voters, and no more than 1/3 of those impaneled can hold another municipal office. And there can be no more than a bare majority of those serving belonging to the same political party. The appointing authority can make recommendations, or the commission must consider recommendations in the petition. Once the charter revision commission is impaneled, a 16-month timeline then triggers. So once the commission's impaneled, that is the triggering event for the commission to get to work in a 16-month period. The commission must complete its draft report after the resolution appointing it, and it must hold at least 2 meetings. The Charter Revision Commission needs to hold 1 meeting before it begins drafting its recommended report, and it needs to hold a second meeting after the report has been completed, but before it is submitted to the North Branford Town Council. After that is done, the North Branford Town Council has 45 days where it must hold at least 1 public hearing on the proposal, the last one being not later than 45 days after you receive the report. And once that hearing is held, the council must then make recommended changes to the commission. So in other words, you might agree entirely with the report. You may disagree entirely with the report. You can agree in part, disagree in part, but that's when you must make your recommended changes to the commission. If you make no changes, there's an assumption that the report is accepted as final, and you have a 15-day window by which to commence that process. If you do make any recommended changes, then the Charter Revision Commission is required to confer with the North Branford Town Council. The Charter Revision Commission may accept or reject any changes that you make. And then the Charter Revision Commission must issue its final report within 30 days after receiving the North Branford Town Council's recommendations. The North Branford Town Council then must act on the final report no later than 15 days after receiving it. If that is rejected, the voters can then petition for referendum within 45 days after rejection. After the final report is approved, the town would be required to publish in at least one newspaper the portions of the charter that are being amended or proposed to be amended, with a notice that a complete copy of those revisions is available in the town clerk's office for public inspection or can be mailed to anyone who requests it. After the commission approves the proposal, the amendments must be put to the voters in either a regularly scheduled meeting, i.e. a general election, or a special election. Then if the voters approve those changes, the town clerk must submit those changes to the Connecticut Secretary of State. And within 30 days, they become effective within the town of North Branford. Now, there's just one more thing I want to point out. There is a distinction between whether if you put these changes on the ballot, assume we get to the end of the process, you put these changes on the ballot, but let's say you say we're going to do it in a local election year when we're all on the ballot versus a special election where you basically call a date where you ask the electors of the town to come out and simply vote on the charter changes. So a majority vote is required in the affirmative for proposals that are submitted during regular elections. So if 50.1% of voters in a general election approve the recommended changes, the changes become effective. With special elections, a majority vote is also required, but that majority vote must equal at least 15% of all municipal or district voters. And then, as I said, it takes effect 30 days after the vote, unless the proposal requires otherwise. That usually does not happen. It is usually within 30 days after the vote. My experience has been that most municipalities will recommend that if and when these changes do work their way through the process and are put before the voters, it is concomitant with a regular election when town offices are decided upon. So that, in essence, is a summation of the process, which is more thoroughly laid out in the memo that is before you. And if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to take them now.
I have a question, Tim. This is Councilor Angeloni. Since we have a referendum, a budget referendum in May, could we do a vote on that one? Or do you have to have a separate special?
You could coincide the special on the same day as the referendum, but you'd have to confer with your town clerk to make sure that the ballot clearly delineated the differences between the referendum question and the charter question.
Okay.
But Tim, you need a majority of voters to vote that in, right? In these referendums, we never get that.
Well, if it's a special one, it was 15%.
Correct.
And if it's a regular one, it's 50.
But no, regular one is 50.1. Both are a majority vote, but with a special, that majority of total voters must equal at least 15% of all municipal voters.
We,
The prevailing vote?
we would never get that.
Is that the prevailing vote that has to be 15% or the total vote?
Majority, not the total, the majority.
And if you don't, Tim, it's Ron, if you don't get that, does it automatically pass like a referendum, or is the vote no good?
The vote would not, if it was a special election, the vote would not be effective if it did not reach the 15% qualifier. That's why most communities do this during a regular town election, because they have confidence that they're going to have the turnout to make sure that the proposed revisions are properly vetted.
Thank you.
Okay. There's no motion.
No, it was just.
Okay, just discussion. All right, next is discussion and action on order of purchasing account procedures.
Is this the forensic audit?
Yes.
So, Mayor, members of the council, what was circulated to you was a draft of an RFP when we last met. The discussion centered around us reporting back to you with a draft for your consideration. I want to emphasize that this is a draft, and any changes that you would like to make to this in whole or in part is entirely within the prerogative of the body. What we tried to do was develop an RFP that listed the qualifications that would be required of any prospective bidder who would serve the audit function, delineating general requirements, licensing requirements, license to practice in the state of Connecticut, giving an explanos of the firm's qualifications and experience, indicating the staff that would be engaged in any form of an audit, making any prospective bidder articulate the audit approach that would be used. So assuming you get multiple RFPs, you might determine collectively as a board that there's a certain audit approach that's been defined by a prospective bidder that you have a preference for versus another process. They're going to have to articulate for you a timeline of how long they would expect this audit to take. They're obviously going to have to tell you what their fees are. We've included provisions that talk about a fixed fee category, but in the event that additional work is required, that would be something that they would have to tell you what that fee would be, and then the council could make a determination. So, for example, if a bidder comes back to you and says, okay, we've completed essentially what you've asked us for, but we've identified that there might be additional work in certain areas, what we're requiring the bidder to do in the draft before you is to tell you what that additional scope would be should the need arise. Just going through it. Also talks about the selection process. It advises the bidder that there would be a selection committee. It advises any prospective bidder of the evaluation criteria. It indicates that the committee, if the council appoints a committee to review all of these requests for proposals, should you decide to proceed. In this, there's a delineation of the evaluation criteria, what mandatory elements are required. The right to reject proposals, which is important because you want to be able to, when you choose the firm that you wish to conduct this audit, you want to be able to justify why you chose one over others and have a clear process and formula that can be quantified and defended by the council. And then the appendices are basically standard in a public audit such as, or a public RFP such as this. Insurance requirements, you're obviously going to want any prospective bidder to issue proof of insurance. And then we provided sample letters that any prospective bidder would provide to the town as part of their submission. As I said, this is simply a draft. It's based upon things that were elicited from the previous meeting. If you want to change the language, if there's things you want to take out, if there's things you want to put in, we will do whatever the council so chooses, if they choose to make those edits tonight or at a later date.
Tim, I have a question, Tim or Dave, either one of you guys. Forensic audit, what is that? What is forensic? Can you explain it to me?
Forensic can best, I've been through two of them, and it could be best be described as a deep dive. So in other words, you will, in a forensic audit, you will get a top level review of, sometimes it's project specific. So you could see, for example, a forensic audit in construction projects where you want to drill down on certain costs or line items within a budget. In a forensic audit, you will get a top level review, and then you'll have subcategories that drill down in certain areas that the auditors might have identified as a need for improvement. But most, at least every forensic audit that I have been involved in has also come forward with a series of recommendations based upon that deep dive into the subject of the audit with suggested recommendations to improve operations, internal controls, to improve system efficiencies.
No, and so I can just weigh in. So that's, Tim is exactly right on the forensic audit. That's to identify, the forensic is usually used as a word to identify any unusual or unauthorized activity that's, gone over, budget or things without appropriate approvals. That's what's typically meant by a forensic audit. There can be also a separate, if you wanted to do a separate RFP, not to do so much the financial analysis, but just have a firm in to analyze what the appropriate procedures are and make recommendations based on observed weaknesses that, for example, this isn't being approved in the right manner. We recommend a change in procedure to do X, Y, and Z, that there should be 2 sign-offs on something or something like that. Forensic is usually to, as Tim observed, to go through particular financial transactions as well as to see if there's anything unusual there, as well as to make the recommendations procedurally.
Okay. All right. I have another question also. Will this audit make any difference for the bonds that we're applying for the school and the police station? Will it put a damper on it? Does it look bad that we're doing this at this time? You know what I mean?
So your concern is that when you go to before the rating agencies and seek the bond authorization for these capital projects, what you're asking, Mayor, is this going to scare off lenders, if you will?
Mm-hmm.
Well, here's what I can tell you. My experience has been that the financial rating agencies tend to applaud when governments take it upon themselves to do a self-assessment, okay, and to work to improve system efficiencies. That's something the rating agencies look very favorably upon. And I can tell you that my experience has been that when municipalities take the affirmative steps to conduct a self-assessment and have a third party come in and give an objective assessment, and then that third party makes a series of recommendations and the municipality implements those recommendations in whole or in part, it is generally well received by rating agencies because you are taking the initiative to improve the overall operational structure of your government. So that's generally well received, or at least that's been my experience.
Okay. All right, thank you, guys. Anybody else with questions?
Yeah, if we go out with these RFPs and the results that come back are significantly higher in terms of a dollar quote than we anticipated, can we reject all of them, or are we obligated to go forward with the process because we requested these requests for proposals?
You are under no obligation to proceed. If
Thank you.
have to make a budgetary decision that this is just way out of your wheelhouse or your budget, you are completely within your purview to do that.
Okay.
I would like to make a motion that we move forward with the RFP for the forensic audit.
I'll second it.
Mike, was that you?
Yes.
Okay, motion was made by Councilor Diamond, seconded by Councilor Duty. Any further discussion on this?
I do have one question. Are we signing off on the RFP that was drafted, or just the concept of putting together an RFP?
Just the concept of putting together is my feeling by, our town hall staff, and then submit it to the town attorney for their finalization and approval.
I thought it looked good. I was just questioning. I noticed that it said in the draft.
Then it comes back to us for the final.
Yeah, but that it goes back to 2011. I was just curious, what is usually the time frame that you do, and does that affect, what is a typical time frame that you're going back to do a forensic audit?
It depends. That's a very subjective standard. It depends what you're looking at. If you're looking at a construction project, obviously a construction project is shorter in duration than, let's say, municipal budgets over a period of time. It's really a question of, like I said, this is a draft. It gets the conversation going. Subject to your final approval. If there's anything in here that any member of the council wants changed or amended or altered, we take our instruction from the council and the town manager, and ultimately it's the town council that's going to approve the final draft that's put before any prospective bidder.
Great, thank you.
The further we go back, if we go back 10 years,
Right.
the more money it's going to cost us.
That's what I was thinking when I was asking.
Right.
Yeah. So are we going to look for something from 10 years ago, or are we going back 5 years, 4 years?
Yep.
And I think we need to give the town manager and the town hall staff, we need to give them some direction as to what we're looking at here. I mean, is it just specific? Is it all across the board? I think I agree, okay, with the concept, we go ahead, but before we have them draft something, I think we need to give them some direction as to what we're looking for.
I agree, Rose.
Well, isn't it typical with an audit, when you're auditing something, let's just, for the sake of argument, say we go back 1 year in general. I'm just talking generalities here. And you find everything's pristine, then you probably don't go any further back. But as you start finding things, don't you keep digging deeper and deeper in an audit? Isn't that how a typical audit works?
Usually.
Right. So my other point, totally different point now, is if we were going to move forward with something like this, the only concern I have is because the recommendations will come out, like they should, and that's what we want, but we have to do something with them, because even our normal audits, if I remember correctly, when they go through them with us annually, there's usually recommendations or points of concern in there. And if we just close the book and put it in the drawer, what's the point? That, I'm not asking a question. I'm just making a statement,
Well, my concern is if we join finance departments with the school and the town together, we're not clean on the town side and have all our procedures and, everything done according to, how it should be done, then we're just as guilty as anybody else. I want to make sure our procedures are, our finances, our books are proper before we even think about joining our finance department with the school finance department. So this is one of my feelings on doing a forensic audit, and I don't think one's been done in years and years and years, and we don't even know if we're doing it right.
I agree, and I support the self-assessment.
Are we doing the forensic audit just on the town side, or are we encompassing the Board of Education also?
We can't do the Board of Ed. We can only do the town side.
Is that true, attorneys?
Board of Education, per statute, once you give them a budget, once you give them a number, they have complete control over that annual budget number. Certainly, I have seen situations where towns that have had internal auditors have asked the Board of Ed to look at the books, and sometimes boards of education have cooperated and other times they have not. But I think at this point, when we talk about cost, if you start involving the Board of Ed as well, this audit's going to be very expensive.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, if I could, just a couple of comments on not just on the how far back we go, but the scope and defining the scope. Otherwise, it will be quite costly given the amount of accounts and if there's a starting point or procedures and controls. I mean, a lot of it, I'm not sure where it's going to go. And how do you limit the scope without being really expensive? So I don't know if we start, as some of the previous conversations about grants and grant procedures, controls around that, or if it's the whole shooting match, because that'll get expensive. There's outside special funds, revenue. Again, we're just looking for direction in terms of so it's not wide open.
Can the RFP be tailored to invite like a tiered offering in terms of whether it's just, at this level, you'll get this deep at, or as opposed to a full town deeper dive?
Yeah, I've seen RFPs and RFP responses that, for lack of a better term, you do get a menu. For this much, you'll get this. For this much, you'll get this. Because a lot of towns have to make a financial decision sometimes. How far do they want to go and how much do they want to spend?
Well, like Tom said, if we do the first year and there's no problems, then we could focus on that year and see what better type procedures we could put into effect or what needs to be corrected. If they have problems, then they might have to go deeper in the second year or the third year.
What's the standard? Sorry,
Tara. I would caution doing just 1 year. You don't get a very good picture that way. I would say at a minimum of 5 years to get to look for trends, because that's part of what they're looking for is trends. And to do 1 year, you're not going to pick up on trends. And, we're really looking at this from a process improvement standpoint. We have people in town that are wearing a lot of different hats. They're doing the best they can, but it may not be the most efficient way to conduct town business. And that's part of it. And we're looking, like I said, process improvement. We're looking to do things better. We're looking to make some changes, and we're looking to get recommendations for a potential charter revision. So, I don't think we should shortchange ourselves either. I would say probably a minimum of 5 years, but I'd be curious to hear how everybody else feels about that.
Well, just to make it clear, I didn't mean 1 year. I was making an example of an audit. And when you start digging deeper, if you find nothing, then you don't have to go deeper. You know, once you establish what you're saying, Ron, I totally get that. So, but again, when recommendations, are presented to us, then it's up to us to take action. Otherwise, if we're like I keep saying, if we're just going to fold the book and put it in the drawer, then maybe we should save our money.
To answer your question, Deputy Mayor, I was involved in a forensic audit of a $52 million sewer construction project. And one of the recommendations that came out of that audit was that the town of Trumbull did not have a codified purchasing policy for the town. So one of the recommendations was the town needs to develop a purchasing policy. So by municipal ordinance, we developed and implemented a very detailed purchasing policy that was followed by our purchasing department. It identified a lack of proper personnel conducting inspections and lack of internal controls, and there wasn't segregation of duty. So the audit recommended that we had to change certain things in our WPCA staffing model. So to your point, that's exactly what would come out of an audit, and that's exactly what we did on the back end to kind of address what was in the audit and to implement the recommendations.
Okay. Any further discussion? All right, Michelle, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Sure. Mayor Viglione,
I'm going to pass.
Deputy Mayor Zampano,
Yes.
Councilor Angeloni,
Yes.
Councilor Diamond,
Yes.
Councilor Duty,
Yes.
Councilor Downs,
Yes.
Councilor Fawnin,
Yes.
Councilor Gold. Oops.
You're muted.
Muted, Walt.
Okay. Did you say yes?
Yes.
Thank you. Councilor Palicia.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
I just want to ask the attorneys a question. When someone passes, do you go back to them after
Yeah,
all of the vote?
supposed to come back to me, I think.
Okay.
I think.
Yes.
You can
Yeah.
get the attorney's answer.
Mayor Viglione.
I'm going to abstain.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, next we have the POCO 2021 fireworks bid acceptance recommendation for Atlas fireworks.
Right, you have a large package in your packet for the recommendation coming from the POCO coordinator and for Atlas fireworks, which is a firm that has been involved. I'm not sure how many years, but they've been involved in many years. I think previous before the last years. I think they have a long history.
So what happens if we don't have the POCO Fest because of the current conditions, or, we can't have the large gatherings, and we accept this and then we don't have it? Are we bound by the contract?
Well, I believe we put that language in there as we did for some of the other standard POCO contracts for a provision like that, like COVID type of situation. I thought I'll defer to maybe David remembers that if we had that placed in there, it's something we were looking at.
Yeah, I'm taking a look. I don't think this particular contract, but there can be included in the contract a provision that says if the festival doesn't go forward, there will be no fee or just a small cancellation fee or something like that. You could decide what's appropriate to do that.
What did we do with them last year? We must have been under contract by the time we canceled.
No, we didn't accept a bid on the contract for last year.
Okay. Then I think we put a clause in there that says, hey, if there's an act of God, one of these variants flares up and we have a resurgence of the pandemic, all bets are off.
Mike, Walter Goat here. What would be the last day that we'd be, we'd find out if we were allowed to have the POCO Fest?
That's a great question, Walt, and I think it's going to have to be, I don't know the answer yet, but it's something I've been talking with the rec director about in terms of sustainability, in terms of when you would have to make a go, no go decision. And I think that's coming up pretty soon. So I think it's the rec commission, POCO Festival got to wrestle with that pretty quickly.
Would it be the Board of Health?
We can make a decision. Again, we can make a decision, but it's hard to know if by August, crowds or it's hard to say.
Are we able to decide, or East Shore has to decide?
No, I don't even think I think it's at the state and the governor's level in terms of saying, like, weddings and outdoor events that no more than 50 people. If he lifts that to and again, there's large numbers that come, right? So I believe it's a function of the governor's executive order and lifting that, if he doesn't extend it.
Yeah, like he's extending it on March 19th. Outdoor events go to 200, which is, nowhere near how many people come to the fireworks.
No, it's going to depend too on the vaccination rates and everything else. I mean,
well, if we put it out to bid, we may, we definitely have to have a certain time frame where we write it into the contract that says, up to 60, 90, 180, whatever the number of days is, because the company is going to have to, spend money to be prepared for it.
Well, it already went out to bid. This is the only bid that came back.
Could we talk to the rec department and find out when would be the last time that they would have to know the last date before, there's got to be a certain date that the POCO Fest just couldn't be put together by, so it would be the last day, and that would be the day we'd have to decide, right?
Right. Yeah, and because obviously we're here at this point bumping up against this issue of getting contracts like this, getting bids out like this, awarding them, setting things in motion. There's plenty more to come with respect to other vendors. So I can reach out and see where the director is and the commission on what their time frame is.
What would be the day?
Time out here. So this bid went out without any consideration for time for cancellation?
Well, there's a bid, but then there's the contract. The contract has to consider that, right?
Right.
Right, but how do you know what you're bidding on unless you have certain criteria? Wouldn't that be part of the criteria you're bidding on?
Well,
that often isn't. Often bids go out and RFPs say that the contract is subject to change in the sole discretion of the town, because what happens then is that there's a bid, and if the town proposes a contract that's unacceptable to the vendor says, that wasn't in my bid, and then there's a negotiation process. So here, for example, I expect there might be some discussion with this particular vendor to say, there's the possibility that this festival will be canceled. Or if you're ordering this stuff, when is the last day that you would be able? We have to cancel with you, and that may be 60 days, 30 days, 90 days, whatever it is, because they may say we can't do this unless we have this stuff pre-ordered by this time that comes in that time, and if we pre-order it, it's not going to be good for another year because it's fireworks. You're not going to be able to sit it around. That's a discussion with the vendor.
Right, Tommy, excuse me for a minute, everybody. Tommy, will you take over the meeting for a few minutes? I have to make a call.
Sure.
Okay, where we are, right? I'll be right back.
So when they priced out the bid, what they did is the rec commission, they basically have two prices. What do we get for 10,000 and what do we get for 12,500? So in their bid proposal, they said for 10,000, here's the number of fireworks you get and the size of the shell and whatever else. And for 12,500, this is what you get.
Okay. All right. I'm used to it going out different, more different than that all the criteria goes out before someone bids on it. But I understand. Thanks.
So can we just table this, Mike, until you talk to Jesse at Park and Rec and get some more information as far as, because I don't see any contract or anything here in going through this. It's just all of the information. And
Yeah, I don't know that it's time sensitive. I mean, sure, they'd like to get it, but I don't think, 2 weeks is going to make the difference. We can circle back with Jesse and Jen and
we just need to know like the last date, how soon before that we can cancel and.
Right. Yeah, I can do that.
Okay.
Okay, so we're going to table that.
I make a motion to table the fireworks bid acceptance, pending further information from the Park and Rec Department.
I'll second that.
Do we need any more discussion? No. Michelle?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Okay, thank you.
All right, next item, memo regarding fire pension.
Okay, so this has been an ongoing discussion with the fire department as far as changing their multiplier. And at our last finance committee meeting last week, we finally were able to firm everything up. So for the last 5 years, their multiplier for their pension has automatically just been a 55-cent increase. So we were looking to go to a plan where it's tied to an index, and we chose the Social Security cost of living adjustment. And so in going back and forth with them, what we did is we proposed a 5-year contract with them using the Social Security cost of living adjustment, but having a floor of 1%. So in case it's a year where, it's a 0% for Social Security, they would get the 1% and a max of 3%. So we're tied in, but the most would be a 3%. So if Social Security, for some reason, one year they have a great year and they get a 5 or 8% increase, they would only get 3%. And so all 4 companies had a representative on the committee, and they've agreed to this plan. So this would go into effect for the 21-22 budget year, fiscal year on here. So I'm going to make the motion to get it on the floor, and then we can open it up for discussion. So the town council hereby approves a 5-year agreement for the merit service retirement plan for volunteer fire and ambulance personnel beginning in fiscal year 21-22 with annual increases to the multiplier between 1% and 3% based on the annual published rate of the Social Security cost of living adjustment.
Second.
Okay, I'm back, Tom. Thank you.
It's all you.
Okay, Rose, you made the motion. Yeah, Walter, you seconded it?
No, Ron did.
Oh, Ron, I'm sorry. Okay, motion made by Councilor Angeloni, seconded by Councilor Felicia. Any discussion? Any further discussion?
Yeah, just one further comment. When we were negotiating this with the fire departments, we proposed actually tying it to the Social Security COLA, but with a ceiling of 3%. We did not put in a floor. They insisted on the floor. So understand that critical to them is this 1% floor.
I think most pensions like this are 3% cap. I'm happy with it. All right, any other discussion? Michelle, can I have a vote, please?
Mayor Viglione,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Zampiano,
Yes.
Counselor Angeloni,
Yes.
Counselor Diamond,
Yes.
Counselor Judy,
Yes.
Counselor Downs,
Yes.
Counselor Fawnin,
Yes.
Counselor Gold,
Yes.
and Counselor Palicia.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Tom, and I apologize. Next is review and approval of bid specifications for RFP number 2, the 2021 to 2022 generator for Town Hall.
Was the money set aside for this?
No money. This is just to actually get it out there to understand how much it might be to place in the budget. So it's just getting a number for that.
Okay.
Does the town hall have a generator now?
No.
No.
Okay. Is the one at the police department going to the new police department, or are they getting
No.
a new one?
Yeah.
You get,
So
get a
could,
new one.
could we use the one at the police department then for town hall?
I don't see why not.
I would check, because my last recollection, when talking about the old, that's in pretty rough shape. So I would check first.
All right. I mean, we can put it out to bid. It doesn't hurt. You don't have to accept it. It's for the 21-22 budget anyway. So.
I mean, if it's for the town hall, you probably want to start with a new one. The one at the police station is pretty rough. I've seen it.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, Paul.
That's the only problem with generators, that they don't get a lot of use, but they're out in the weather all the time.
Yeah. I think you definitely want to start out with a brand new one.
I know Company One has had a lot of problems with their generator. They're still, fortunately, they're under warranty. So I think it would behoove us to find out what brand that is and who put it in and what the problems are, so that we don't end up with the same issues at town hall if we decide to do it.
That's why.
Are there any other town buildings that are in need of a new generator?
No, well, no. I don't know the answer to that, but I'm not aware of any other major problem. I mean, they're just old, like the one at the PD, but that's, as they move over, they'll get a new one. I don't know that there are any other issues.
Maybe we could get it the same time the police station gets their new one.
Yeah.
Right? They'll be getting it probably in about a year, right?
Well, yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see, just because I think town hall, the way Tilcon wired the building was, it's not going to be that easy, straightforward. Just pop a generator in. That's why we're going out to bid to get a full scope of what's needed. But yeah, I mean, if the timing works, we'll see. I think we got to get the numbers first and see what we're dealing with.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. I'd like to make
What
a
do you-
motion to approve RFP number 2, 2021-22 for the town hall emergency standby electric generating system.
I'll second that.
That was you, Walt?
Yep.
Okay, motion was made by Councilman Angeloni, seconded by Councilor Gold. Any further discussion? Michelle, can I have a vote, please?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
Okay. Next, we have appropriation transfers for year 2020, 2021.
I'll move those.
Second,
Yep, Mike
Yep.
and
Rose.
Mike and Rose, okay. Was made by Counselor Duty, second by Counselor Angeloni. Any discussion? Can I have a vote, please, Michelle?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
Okay, next is a monthly financial report as of December 31st, 2020.
Yeah, it should be actually January 31, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
The numbers, the top line, while it appears that our property tax current is a couple of percent lagging from last year, I spoke to the tax collector and there were several big checks that came in February 1, still to be counted on time for tax payments, but will be reflected on the February records. So he anticipates that that will level itself out after the February report and should not be a lag from last year. Also of note is if you look at the conveyance tax, the fifth item down, you'll see the benefit of the robust real estate market that we're in, collected $162,000 of conveyance taxes, which is noteworthy. Aside from that, the revenues are all pretty much in line with current projections. On the expenditure side, the technology department, again, remains the only department that is overexpended compared to last year. Interestingly enough, if you look at public works, as a percentage of budget basis, they're actually a couple percent behind last year, which is kind of noteworthy. So the 59.7% last year at this time compared to 57.4%. So we'll see when these new storms kick into the budget, happening on holidays and weekends and such. They tend to be very costly for us, but we're keeping an eye on the overall public works budget. Aside from that, it's unremarkable. There's nothing extraordinarily noteworthy, except that the technology and again the tax number we anticipate will level itself out at the end of February.
Okay, thanks, Anthony. Next is approval of tax records.
I move to approve the tax refunds as listed on page 75.
Refunds, I'm sorry.
Second,
Okay, that was you, Marie?
Yes.
Okay, and Rose?
yes.
All right, motion was made by Counselor Diamond, seconded by Counselor Angeloni. Any further discussion? We can have a vote, Michelle.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
Okay, next is citizen statements and petitions. Michael, you have anything? And
Just give me 1 second to check.
okay,
I have a couple on Facebook, Mr. Mayor.
okay,
Teresa Franson, representing the library board, said the library board is discussing their reopening at their next meeting. And Ken Ash had inquired as to how many actual COVID cases are positive as of right now. So we can get that from Mike Pascusillo and get that back to him.
okay,
There was comments in the chat as well. Michelle had noted when the comment about the budget, the gas is a calendar year bid. So the numbers that we have now are in place through December 31, 2021. The bids for the 22 year won't go out until November. So departments have been instructed to use that number for the current year. The diesel and number 2 oil will be opening up tomorrow. And as soon as we get those numbers, we'll relay those out to the various departments.
okay. Thanks. Thank you, Anthony. Michael, you have anything?
Nothing on via email.
Okay.
I have one comment, Mr. Mayor,
Yeah,
and I just
okay.
want to put this out to the council. Last year, we did our budget workshops and all of our hearings via Zoom, and I found it very hard to go through that. And just wondering if we can go back to live council meetings starting in March. since the March 19th. Right now, it's 25 people can be in a room, and I think we can do that. We've done that in the town hall, in council chambers, and the governor is increasing that to 50% capacity.
I think you're right. I think you're
March
right.
19th. So
I agree.
I think we need to go back to live meetings.
I support that.
I'm on board.
I'm in favor.
Me too. So why don't we, Michael? What'd you say, March, Rose?
Well, March 2nd is our first regular council meeting. So I would like to see us start in March.
Okay. Yeah, I'm for that. Everybody else okay with that?
Yes.
Oh, I'm good.
Yeah, me too. Mike? Mike and Mike?
I'm in favor of it. I said it.
If everybody's comfortable, yeah, I'll talk with Mike. We'll do what we got to do to, distance and make it safe. So yeah, if everybody's comfortable on that end, and we'll work toward a meeting date from getting back in March, if we can pull off March 2nd. So I don't see why we couldn't.
Okay, sounds good.
Would this be open to the public or just council members?
As long as we are within the numbers, we can't.
20.
Yeah, we just can't exceed the number.
We can't exceed 25 at this point. And then it'll increase after March 19th. So.
I don't know if this is the time to talk about it now, but is that the type of thing where we literally would have the amount of chairs in there allowed for the people that would be allowed in there, right?
I would think so.
Right?
Yeah.
25, there's only 25 seats and it can't be
Yeah.
anybody standing.
Yep.
Oh, and that 25 includes all the council
Yes,
members,
yeah.
the town attorney, town, manager, department head. So, we might end up with, five.
Five
Yeah.
or six, yeah, after all staff and everybody's counted in.
Yeah.
But it is, we set it up before, we can reset it and do that not to exceed the limit.
That'll be the greeter's responsibility to make sure the head count is exact.
Okay. All right, I need a motion to go in executive session. And does anybody need a break?
I make a motion to go into executive session under CGS 1-200 CGA for the town manager and under CGS 1-210 B4 pending litigation to include town council members, town manager, and town attorneys.
Second.
Okay, the motion was made by Councilor Angeloni, seconded by Councilor Diamond. Any further discussion on this? Okay, we have a vote, Michelle.
Sure. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Okay, thank you.